Hi there, I'm Jess with the Relationship Revivalists, and I'm back again talking about our love study. Just like last video, we changed it from a fear study to a love study because we know that the opposite of love is fear, and the more we focus on fear, the more we get fear. So the more we focus on love, the more love we get in our hearts toward God, toward ourselves, toward other people. And really we get some of his passion. You know, we were just celebrating Easter, and it talks about God's passion for us, that he did such a hard thing for us so we could have so many benefits. And so when we think about that, God was moved to compassion and passion for us. And that's what we feel when we feel God's love and his presence in our lives. We get that passion too for the things that he has called us to do. But a lot of times fear gets in the way of that passion. Fear binds us up, shuts us down. And really, we need to be on God's wings of his passion and his love so we can just overcome that fear and go out and do what he's called us to do. So we've been studying a bit about fear in this wonderful book, Make Fear Bow by Gary V. Whetstone. I have notes up here. I've highlighted it. And so we're still in chapter 3, but I wanted to point out something. In this chapter 3, Gary gives a verse, and it's a verse that I have heard so many times in my life, and sometimes we hear something so many times it becomes maybe a little too familiar, like, oh yeah, that's nice, that sounds good. And the verse is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, and I'm going to read it now to you. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. So have you heard that verse a lot too? And it kind of felt watered down to me until I started reading it in chapter 3, how Gary was talking about his story when he had to believe God for something really, really big, something he'd never had to believe God for before. And when he finally led up to that verse, it was like, oh my goodness, I got a bigger revelation of what that really means, because really, ultimately, he's telling us in everything, every single thing, every single situation, go to God first. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In chapter 3 in this book is actually called the arm of the flesh, or trusting in the arm of the flesh. And we don't want to do that. We want to trust in the Lord. Might think, some people might say, well, you're always talking about God. You're always talking about trusting in God. You can do things on your own too. But you know what? I've found, at least in my personal experience in life, whenever I try to do something on my own, it doesn't work out so good. I never have done anything very great just doing it on my own. The only times that I've done things that are pretty cool is when I've given it to God and followed his path through it for me. There was a time where I was I was in a program to launch myself into my career. It wasn't going so well for me, and I was looking around in the class and thinking about other people and their lives and thinking, well, if they seem to be doing pretty good, what's wrong with me? How come I'm not doing it right? How come I'm not getting it? What's wrong with me? I was trusting in myself. I was looking at myself, what I could do, instead of giving it to the Lord. But you know what? I finally learned that, thankfully, before it was too late. But a secret, it's never too late. I got on God's path of trust. The Holy Spirit literally invited me on a trust walk with him over 15 years ago, and I haven't gotten off of it. And it has changed my life. So eventually, I was able to do what I was supposed to do, launch my career. It worked out really well, but it took trusting in the Lord. It really did. It took clinging to him through some hard times, but we got through it, and it became really, really great. And so that's what I wanted to share with you today. And thank you for joining us on this trust walk, also on this love walk, on getting rid of fear walk. It's so possible to eradicate fear in our lives. And I say that out of trust in the Lord right now because I have lived with low-grade anxiety at the very least for much of my life. And I think in other videos I'll get into more of why. I think we all have things that happen to us as a child or somewhere in our lives that we feel a little bit shaken, and that's kind of when fear kind of thinks it can enter into our lives. But we're learning now that we can make fear bow, just like this title says. And we're working on that. We're going to make fear bow. So join me on the next video and we'll continue our conversation.